present here today at the South End Museum, and then also everybody following online, at home, or wherever you are. Welcome to the launch of Lyndon Bouah's second book. Dr. Lyndon Bouah is not new on the scene of book writing, and I'm privileged to introduce him to you today. Dr. Bouah is the man of chess. I mean, if we think of chess in South Africa, we think of Lyndon Bouah. He's a player, coach. He's been manager of the SA teams, captain of the SA teams, and avid supporter of South African chess. He's also a person that top players respect. He's got integrity. People can talk to him, and he takes chess serious, and he's serious about the development of chess and the chess players in South Africa. So this book comes as no surprise. Lyndon's knowledge of history in South Africa is enormous, and I'm so glad that he has taken the time to put it down on pen and on paper for all of us to read and to enjoy and to learn as well. I've learned a lot of things of the history of South African chess just by going through his book. I love the pictures in the book. They tell 1,000 tales. It's good to see what everybody looked like years ago. So that's also quite good. And the games in the book is very well structured. Over 90 games in the book, 12 chapters, over 50 photos. So it's a really good collection for first volume of the history and his journey in South African chess. So as you can see, it's the first volume in it. So we're looking forward to the second one that takes us through further years and later years in his life of South African chess. But for now, we're going to enjoy that first part. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Lyndon Bouah. So he will take us through his presentation and share with us some insights of his book. And I must say, I'm very proud to introduce him today, because I've seen the hard work that went into this book, the late nights, the digging for information, the searching for games, correcting games where things were not good. And so it's a lot of hours that went into this. So we'll be proud to have him in the country, and I hope the readers will enjoy this book. Over to you, Lyndon.
Thank you very much, Denise, and welcome everybody here to South End Museum this morning. I'm glad that you could join me. This is the start of, this is our first book launch for this particular book, and thereafter we'll be having 10 promotional book launches. After this, Denise and I travel to East London on Monday, and we'll be in East London for 2 days, and thereafter we'll be going to George, Oudtshoorn, Mossel Bay, Caledon, Paarl, and then the last 2 in Cape Town. So we will be doing that for the week and meeting fellow sport and recreation and chess enthusiasts. So thank you everybody for coming, and also for those viewers that are online on Twitch. We are streaming internationally this morning from South End Museum via the Calvin Class and Chess channel, and that is going throughout the world. Calvin's got hundreds of subscribers, and then he's got that going. And then we also have Denise on Zoom for many of the people following here in South Africa and elsewhere that is connected to the Zoom platform as well. So what we'll be doing this morning, so we just get comfortable, is we're going to go through my journey. And the reason why I decided to launch in Port Elizabeth, because the journey starts in Port Elizabeth. I couldn't do it elsewhere. And Denise and I, when we discussed it, we agreed that we'll start at the point of origin, as it were. And I was explaining to Denise that actually BETHELSDORP High School is the successor of South End High School. So you actually have me and everyone here coming back to where we were before, when BETHELSDORP got started in 1972. It was actually first South End High School. So some of those things are important historically, but allow us to go through the journey this morning. So let's go to the first slide, Calvin and Denise, and through that we tell the story and the journey. We're going to ask you to put your phones on silent for a moment. Thanks, Ewan. And then we will proceed from there, and we'll be busy till about 10:30, and thereafter there'll be 1 or 2 questions from Zoom or 1 or 2 questions from Twitch, and then we open it up to the audience here until 11 o'clock, and that's when we conclude our proceedings for today with the launch. And at 12 o'clock, we have a second set of people coming, and at 3 o'clock, there are also people that have registered to come, because of course I didn't want to have only 1 session and people in terms of COVID not being able to attend as well. So let's go through the first one, Denise. We'll be going through. You just wait for a moment while we share. And thank you very much. So Denise is the person that inspired me to write this book, because she wrote a book which is standing there called Sports Psychology for Children. And when I saw her writing the book, I felt this need to also write the story of my journey in chess. And I learned from the experiences that Denise had writing her book. And I decided when lockdown arrived in April last year, that one of the first things that I would do is to actually collate all my games that I played through the years. And I actually had a shoebox at home where I had kept my score recording books, the notation books as we call it, in that shoebox. And when I took it out and started typing in the games, because in those years when we started to play, we didn't have computers, we didn't have ChessSpace, we didn't have many of the things that we take for granted today. And I ended up typing or correcting 1,810 games that I've played over the last 34 years. But what was significant about that is that I actually realized that the fact that I'm typing it in were the names of the places that I played in and at, the names of the opponents, the schools that I played against, and the date was actually important historical information, because it allows us to see various things through the games and through the fact that I played. So let's have a look where it started. Thanks, Denise and Calvin. So the first is that I want to acknowledge a great deal of organizations that I won't be able to all read out now. You can read it on the screen. But these are the organizations that started me off. And you'll see BETHELSDORP Senior Secondary School stands large. Empire Chess Club, Mr. Lawrence Truman, stands large. Alakine Chess Club, very important chess club that we formed in 1989. And then the University of the Western Cape, Wayne Leander was one of my clubmates at BETHELSDORP. And then we have Eastern Province Chess Association, and Tinus was one of my teammates when we played in the interprovincials years ago, probably about 20 odd years ago. And then there's various other organizations in Cape Town, and then also in South Africa, the students' organizations that I was part of. So these are the organizations that I was a member of, that I played for. And I also found my Eastern Province tie, which I will share with you later on, that I actually still have, that I received for the first time very proudly in 1988. Thanks, Denise. So the journey, as we continue to the book itself, and this is the book that is volume 2. There are 12 chapters. Now just show everybody, this is the book, and you'll see that it's still bound because it's still the first copies that we have. And I've decided to start the first chapter with BETHELSDORP because I can't start anywhere else. But it was interesting that I looked back in my photo albums, Neville, and I discovered that at Christmas 1983, our parents bought a chess set for me for the first time. And in that photograph is a chess set with a racing track. And I'm actually still playing with a racing track in 1983. But then somewhere in about September 1986, I had forgotten to do my homework, intentionally, willfully, I'm not sure. But I then discovered that the only room that was open at BETHELSDORP was a room called room 29. And in that room was Mr. John Ritchie, and Mr. Ritchie allowed me to do my homework. So you'll see I talk a bit about Mr. Ritchie, and in these are the other chapters that I talk about. I talk about the history of SASA, the South African Senior School Sports Association, and I also speak about the declaration, the SASA tournaments that I participated in, because what is important is that when you go onto Wikipedia or onto the internet these days, you don't find the results of those events that we all participated in. So what this book has allowed me to do is to write down the names of the players who played for Eastern Province and who made the South African schools team. And what I did to cross-reference, I used my Kodak 200 that my parents had given me, because the Kodak 200 had allowed me to take photographs. And some of those photographs are in my photo album, so I can see the boards 1 to 6, because they are all in the photograph, because they are at the championship as we are given the trophy or the certificate or the title. So that again was then the best evidence that I used to triangulate, Bevan, the results and the information that I had in my head and the photographs that allowed me. So this is in chapter 1, and it's a very important because it looks at the high school years, but it also allowed, let's go to the next one, it also allows us to look at, for me, the teachers at that particular time. People underestimate the value of teachers and what teachers bring to society. And I mentioned in this first chapter that if it wasn't for the teachers at BETHELSDORP and elsewhere, some of them that shaped me, I would not be the person that I am today. So when I look back at BETHELSDORP, then for me, in my chess career, the most outstanding person was Mr. John Ritchie, because he started the BETHELSDORP Chess Club at 7 o'clock in the morning. I left home at 6:30 every morning, Monday to Friday, to get to school by 7, because I knew there were other opponents waiting for me there, other players, teammates, and we would play blitz before school, first break, second break, and 3 times a week as well after school. So that we knew, and he was dedicated enough to open his class on each day, and it was available. So for me, Mr. Ritchie was our most influential chess teacher at school. And then, of course, you had all the other teachers that also assisted him and organized things. I only realized probably about 30 years after I finished school that things that I took for granted, such as league fixtures, that we think is very easy to do, actually is not so easy to do, because you have to coordinate schools from Humansdorp to John Walton in Newton and others in order to bring those school fixtures. And when I think back, I call receiving the fixtures at the end of March, because the end of March is when the Champ of Champs Athletic Championships took place at Galdendale Track, and we concluded that, and then your winter codes kicked in, and we normally played the chess. So for me, September 86, when I walked into room 29, when I didn't do my homework, was a pivotal moment for me. And thereafter, I also realized that my uncle Lionel could play a bit of chess, and I used to play chess against him on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks, Denise. This is the interesting thing, is that some of you will recognize Mr. Henry Eithaler is on the left, Winston Dalpert, and I'm there next to Winston. I don't know why my tie was undone on that side. And then you have Shane Bassett, he was at BETHELSDORP. You have Alistair Chapman, Iron Peterson with the afro, which was, of course, the fashion at the time. And then you have Richard Ward at the bottom and Conrad Bluffner. This was the Eastern Province team that went to Johannesburg in September 88. So this was the first Eastern Province schools team that I had made. And we then traveled to Rivoli, where my uncle, James Bouah, was the principal at the time, and he accommodated myself at his home, and then the rest of the team stayed in his row with other folks that time. And that is how SASA operated. We didn't sleep in hotels, we slept with the communities in which we played, and that was the one we played in Johannesburg at CJB School in Johannesburg. You can see the great bus that we traveled in. So one of those luxury liners, Wayne, but that was how it looked at the time. And this was our school team, and I'm trying puzzling to figure out that I think that this is the 87 team, because Alvin Peterson is still in the team, because Alvin was in the trick in 87, and Alvin is the one with the afro hair in the middle, and then you have Mr. John Ritchie on the top. And this was our team. Deirdre Jacobs, our only female at the time in the team. We had 1 or 2 females that participated, but this was our team that participated in that particular year, the league, the A and the B team, and you'll see that the trophies was won. Normally, the A and the B team was won every year, the Eastern Province Senior Schools League as well. So I've got a number of these pictures in the book. So Fazla, you appear in one or two of the photos in later years when Fazla also joined the BETHELSDORP A and B teams as well. But what was interesting for me, Lawrence, when I actually did the analysis, I discovered that chess in the Eastern Province, northern areas, was very much a working class game. Most of the players came from Salt Lake, came from Arcadia, came from Chatty and elsewhere. It was very interesting when I started doing that analysis that you didn't have many chess players from Galvin Park and players making these Eastern Province teams. But it was an interesting, and I don't know the reason for it. You know, it's something that sociologists will at some stage go in. But the fact that chess was played in working class communities was a very important one. Thanks, Denise. Thanks, Galvin. Chapter 2 looks at the history of club chess in the Eastern Cape. Now, Leonard Ritstein, the late Leonard Ritstein, wrote a book called The History of Chess in South Africa, and he discovered that the first chess clubs in the Eastern Cape was Grahamstown Chess Club and PE Chess Club, both founded around about 1882, 1883. He doesn't have the exact date, but it's around the early 1880s. We discovered, thanks to these, we go to the next one, we discovered that the first Eastern Province chess clubs in the colored areas and the black areas of Port Elizabeth was 1982. So about 100 years later, you have organized chess. And Professor Cornelius Thomas wrote a lovely magazine article in which he chronicled all of that. And one of the things, Wayne, that I found interesting was that Xavier, one of the first clubs was called ABC Chess Club. So I'm not sure if the guys didn't have, you know, why they called it ABC, but that was one of the first. So you had ABC Chess Club, you had Nimzo Chess Club, and then you had a club called Galvin Sicilian that was very active. And then around about 1984, Empire Chess Club was formed at Arcadia High School with Ampie Williams and Milroy Rogers. And Mr. Ampie Williams is late, but what was significant for me was that my mother, who was very conservative, very protective, allowed me to walk to Arcadia. So you walk over the Morocco Road field, there's a little bridge there just at the back of the soccer field. You go there, there's a church there, and then you get to Arcadia High School. And I used to walk. I'm not sure if they were protective angels because they had angelic names, but I used to walk with two guys called Peter and Mark. They walked with me to Arcadia when I was still a young man. And later on, of course, they both stopped playing chess, but I still continued to walk to Arcadia because that's where the club was formed. So very important, Empire Chess Club allowed me to also have mentors outside of my family as well, because all of a sudden I was now meeting new people, older than me, most of them. Ivan Peterson's, Milroy, Yanni Safirs, all these older players that I didn't know at the time, but I began to know, and of course became firm friends. The last one, very significant, Lawrence, many of the chess club was highly politicized. Many of the guys, and being a young man of 13, 14, no knowledge, real knowledge of politics, they would influence us in terms of our critical thinking as well. Very important at the time. Thanks. The third chapter looks at the national events that was hosted by the Chess Association for the People of South Africa. The first one I traveled to was, in fact, is London. At the age of 13, I played there. And what was funny for me, Wayne, was when I got to East London, we stayed in Buffalo Flats. There were two liquor stores, and they were known as If Not and At Last. I still don't know why they had those names, If Not and At Last liquor stores. The second one was in Cape Town, and that was won by Dion Solomon. Maxwell Solomon won the 87 one. Thanks, Maxwell. Maxwell is also online. And in 1989, Fazla traveled with us to Durban, and we participated in Durban. Big triumph for Port Elizabeth. Rashad Ward from Salt Lake, BETHELSDORP, wins the CAPSA championship. I lost in the first round to Sean Willenberg, and Rashad just kept on winning, and Rashad beat Alistair Chapman in the last round. And today, that was our first senior national title with Rashad Ward, and well done to him at the time. CAPSA 1990, we played at West End Community Centre. Malcolm Fredericks from Cape Town wins the event. I come second at there, and I still remember I had a part-time job. Meryl had arranged a part-time job for me at Edgar's, which I gave up because it was more expensive by taxi getting there than actually working. Then I worked at Delta, and then at Delta they told me, sir, you must either play chess or come work. I said, there's no choice, I have to go play chess. So I then went to play at Western, and I came second. And in the 2 South African close championships that I played in was fantastic because I was 16 years old in 1989, played at Bellville South, and I lost to a guy called Jeremy Lewis, but I came second in the tournament behind Dion Solomons. So I was very excited because it was the first time that I was playing with the big guys. And then in CAPSA 1991, I was 17 years old, playing in that time. I was turning 18 the next month, and we played at Pentec, and I came second again. So I was happy to be able to play against and show that Eastern Province also had potential. Thanks to me. So one of the funny incidents was we got to Transkei, and there we got stopped at the border, and one of our players didn't have the right papers. And after 5 hours at that border post, we had to send him back by taxi. So unfortunately, he didn't have now the right papers, and that was still one of those funny apartheid stories only when you get stopped just after East London at the border, and you can't go further to get the thanks, please. And then the unity discussions in chess. So when I got to Cape Town in 1991, lots of big discussions between the National Sport Council and SACCOS at the time. And at UWC, we had a very left-leaning outlook, and they wanted to have unity because the ANC had made a request that sports bodies should start talking to one another. We then started that, and I joined the body that started talking to the white establishment body at the time. Thanks, Denise. And with that, we decided to play a unity match, the first unity match, 24 August 1991. And it was a UWC team, UWC/Bellville South, against Cape Town Chess Club. And I was paired against the 6-time South African champion, Charles de Villiers. So I was 18 years of age, actually not 19 as it's written there, but it's a direct quote from the newspaper. And I played against a gentleman called Charles de Villiers. And in a historic moment, emotional for me and for many others, at the age of 18, I beat the SA champion, the reigning SA champion, and all the newspapers the next day, thanks guys. The next day was asking, but who is this guy? Where does he come from? And then I still recall speaking to the report, and they asked me, are you the best black player in the country? And I said, no, I think I'm about number 5 or 6. There's no other guys, because I wasn't the champion. I was Dion Solomons and Maxwell Solomon and Bowden and others. They were all still around. So for me, that was a fantastic victory. And of course, the fact that it was historical, that was also important. Thanks to you. Chapter, just as a matter of interest, when I came home from Cape Town, we then organized a match against PE Chess Club. And ACKNOWLEDGEMENTS Chess Club played against PE Chess Club on the 10th of December, 1991. I played board 1, and I played against Ewan Kromo, who was here earlier, and I drew with Ewan, but ACKNOWLEDGEMENTS Chess Club from Arcadia beat PE Chess Club 7.5 to 9.5 to 7.5, and I've got all the names of all the players who played on both sides. I had to go scratch it out because I couldn't find it, but it's there. So I was privileged to have played in both unity matches that kick-started unity in South Africa. UWC, my experience, and Wayne Leander, that's sitting here, was my manager in my first tour when I went to the Medical University of South Africa, Medunsa, in Soshanguve, and Wayne took us there, and I went with Velman de Bruin, who is from Arcadia, and Velman and I came joint first in the tournament. We drew with one another, and 6.5 out of 7, we both scored, so we shared the title in that first year at Medunsa. And Wayne, you mentioned as the manager, so thank you, Wayne, for coming through 30 years ago, this tournament, and here we still are. So what I've done, you can go, Denise and Calvin. What I've done is to highlight some of the players that was with me at the university. On my immediate left is the late Aldo Smart. That's Aldo. Then it's Calvin van der Daar, Duke Simon, and Brandon Nosper. And these are the guys who formed the backbone of the team in the 93, 94, 95 teams at UWC. And I thought I'd honor Aldo because he actually passed away on the 9th of June, 2017. So it's about 4 years ago, but I decided to put this lovely photo of him in. So what I've done is with this chapter, I've recorded the names of all the students who made the SA student teams in those 5 years that I was part of UWC. Very important because you don't find that history anywhere. And today, when you read the book tonight, when you have an opportunity, you'll actually see the names. Some of them you'll still remember, some of them are late, and others are still playing today. Thanks, Denise. Then the interesting thing about the 1992, so South Africa then had the discussions, the unity discussions. The international body FIDE sent a 6-man commission to South Africa to investigate if chess can go back to the Olympics. And then they sent a note to South Africa that South Africa will be allowed to send a representative team to the Olympiad that will start on the 7th of June, 1992. So in March, a team was announced, and I was part of that team. We had some people that were opposed to the team because they said that myself and Maxwell Solomon in particular were not the strongest players in the country and that we shouldn't be going to the tournament. The other side of the coin was that we would not be allowed to go. It's not a unified team. So now you had this chicken and egg situation that you would not be allowed to play at FIDE if you were not a unified team. And at the end, we went. It was Dion Solomons, David Druckmann, Charles de Villiers, Watu Kobese, Maxwell Solomon and myself. Watu didn't make it to get to the Philippines, but the 5 of us, captained by Mark Levitt, we were in the 1992 team, and that's where I played for the first time at the Olympiad. And we can go to the next slide. And what is important for me is that we were actually with Russia, and the 17 ex-Soviet republics became members of FIDE on the same day, 22 June 1992. Little known fact, but South Africa was admitted back after 1974 into the Olympiad. I received the candidate master title for my performance at that particular Olympiad, something that I'm very proud of. I'm the first South African to have achieved the title at an international Olympic event. And today I'm proud to say that I'm an Olympian. Denise has played 7 times at the Olympic Games, and I've been fortunate to play twice and also be the captain 5 times as well. Thanks, Denise. Chapter 7 looks at my African safaris, and in 1993, I traveled to Kenya for the first time to play the African Junior Championships. I came joint second in that particular event, but it was the first time South Africans were allowed to participate in a continental event. In fact, we didn't even have the diplomatic relations with other African countries, and I played in Nairobi for the first time and made some great friends in Kenya, and I'm still corresponding with many of them today as well. Thanks to me. Chapter 8 is the road to Moscow, and this is, for me, the pinnacle for any chess player. If you're a chess player, you know that at some stage, if you can ever get to Moscow, then this is it. It's the pinnacle. And for me, I was fortunate that the 1994 Olympiad was held at the Cosmos Hotel in Moscow, and I participated there. I won through the trials. The SA trials was 14 players at Pentic, as it was known at that time. I scored 6 draws, 6 wins, 1 loss, and I was in the team at number 4 with unequivocal. So nobody could say I was not in the top 4 in South Africa because I made it in the trials. And what was interesting, Maxwell also made it at number 5. So all the critics of 1992 was now quiet because we had played the trials with all these best players in the country and we had made it, and I was very, very happy. And then for the first time, I went to the Kremlin, went to St. Basil's Cathedral, and went to the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. And Moscow is really one of my favorite cities. I've been there twice more. 1996, I spent 2 days there. And then in 2012, Denise played in the Women's World Championship. And we stayed 1 week in Moscow, and I showed her all of those fantastic sites in Moscow as well. So one of my favorite cities, and of course, an experience second to none. Thanks, Denise. That's me in 1994, Alison. I don't know if you recognize me. I'm a few kilograms lighter, but that's the Kremlin. That's St. Basil's Cathedral behind me, and that's the Kremlin on the corner, because of course the Kremlin goes right around on that side. Thanks, Denise. Then an interesting thing happened in 1993 is that the former world champion Anatoly Karpov came to visit UWC upon the request of Professor Andre Odendaal from the History Department. So we met and we chatted and we spent the whole day together at the university. And in 1994, I then met Anatoly Karpov, the former world champion, again in Moscow at the Cosmos Hotel. When he saw me, he said, South Africa. He obviously can't remember my name, but he remembered that I was from South Africa. We chatted, he and I, and then he chatted with the other people because, of course, I'm just an amateur in comparison to him. But in 1995, Dennis, a fax arrived. Now, Alison, a fax is a little piece of page that comes through. No emails at that stage. And in that fax, Anatoly Karpov invited me to the Karpov School of Chess in Sweden. And we negotiated that I'm just finishing my studies. I'm going to come the next year. And in 1996, I visited the Karpov School of Chess, where I studied chess for 5 months every day, sharpening my theory and my practical skills and learning about the Karpov method of preparation and also the Swedish chess methodology as well. Thank you. Of course, for some reason, I wore the t-shirt I love chess on the day. I still don't know why. You know, must have been a fashion faux pas there, Lauren. But I wore Barfield, and there's Karpov, that's Dion Pick, and that's Jonathan Buckman. And when this is at the Mahibuye Center next to the study hall at the UWC library, where that is. So that's Karpov. Thanks, Denise. Then chapter 10, one of the things that I did was to complete the Western Province League survey. I started where Mr. Richstein started in 1907, and then I took it right until 2019. I spoke about the early years, which I recall from his book, and then I continued with looking at the modern unified Western Province League. And my club, Steinitz, has won the league 11 times, and I've put in the history of that, and you'll see I've drawn conclusions. So this will become an academic article at a later stage, because in 2019 tennis, the league had 892 players that played for 11 weeks at the Proteaville Belvoir South Hall. 892 players in one venue. Thank you. And that was, of course, the early years we spoke about. So when we traveled to False Bay, we looked for False Bay Chess Club the whole evening along the False Bay coastline, only to discover they had a tennis club. So the early years, we didn't know where the clubs were based. And later on, and in the first year, in 1992, UCT, headed by George Mikalakis, who became an international master, they won the league, and in 93, Steinitz won the league for the first time, which was fantastic because Steinitz was from Pontiago, which is, of course, a tough area on the Cape Flats, but that is where Steinitz was formed on the 29th of April, 1977. Thanks, Denise. Chapter 11, I look at some of the tournaments, and I then come here. In 1996, I won the Western Province Closed alongside Maxwell Solomon. We scored 6.5 out of 7. And then in 1997, I did my articles here in PE. And in tennis, you were in that tournament. I then won the Eastern Province Closed Championship also with 6.5 out of 7, only drawing with you and Cromot and beating the rest of the field. So for one brief month, I was the Western Province Closed Champion and the Eastern Province Closed Champion as well. Thank you. And that's my story, ladies and gentlemen, for the first part up until 2002. You'll have to wait for the second book to conclude. But thank you very much for listening. We're going to take 1 or 2 questions now from anyone in the audience first, and then we'll go to Zoom and Twitch. So it's open for questions. Thanks. Wayne, you've got your hand up.
Yes, so I think, you know, you have been a player, you've been a manager, you've been a coach, you've been a respecter. From ground level to chairing, you know, and certainly as life evolved, you also gained experience. I think when a youngster looks at you now, you might not see where you came from, and you might not understand the difficulties and the struggles that you went through. Certainly, you've shared with us the example of, you know, going through a pandemic. I can relate to that. So maybe just, you know, share with us, some of the individual things that you struggled with right at the beginning, and then from where you're sitting now is just to share with us, and certainly the audience, share with us if there's anything that you would change in your travels, in your life, and certainly and I don't want to say this. I apologize for saying it last. I'm actually proud and honored that you of the person that you've become, the person that you still are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. The question related to some of the earlier challenges or difficulties that we had, and I think when I look back, and I was discussing this with Denise in the car, the only thing that we had going was books. There was no computers. There was no, the guys that were coaching you were just a bit stronger than you, but they didn't have as much experience because we didn't have that exposure at that particular time. And for me, the fact that somebody like Mr. Ritchie opened the chess and allowed us to play in that classroom on such a frequent basis, that was pivotal. And we took the study of chess very, very seriously in our high school years, myself and my teammates, because we played quite a lot. Eastern Province chess had structure, and that helped me a great deal. But I think for us, anybody who succeeded in playing organized or representative chess or any sporting code needed to have resilience. There would be difficulties. I mean, I've got the photos here of when the buses broke down for 5-6 hours as you had to travel somewhere. That's one of those things. I can show you that I still have copies of the raffles that we had as we gave out to people for 2 rand and 5 rand for the clubs to travel. Those financial difficulties, I still have all of those things. Who brought in 10 rand, and my mother used to someone give me a 20 rand so that we don't need to go walk around to the doors. But those financial and logistical difficulties were all there as well. So those things for me, Wayne, was part of the challenges, and I'm so glad that Eastern Province had that. The fact that they were organized. That's why Professor Thomas pointed out that we had since '82, and then when I got to university and to Cape Town, there was even a bigger chess structure on that side as well. So Wayne, thank you very much for that question. We'll take Lawrence Doohan, and then we'll come back to Calvin. Mr. Doohan.
So he didn't stop training it. So I was so disappointed because I wanted him to be told by Mr. because I think that Mr. Ritchie is one of the best coaches ever.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to speak about this. What are you guys doing to make sure that that is not happening in the future? Because I think that most of our great players, as you said, come from the poor areas.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. So what we've done in Cape Town, and we've pushed this also at the national level in South Africa, and it's maybe something that you need to explore, but chess has been declared one of the 16 priority codes in South Africa. So the fact that we have been declared one of the priority codes means that we are now seen alongside the rugby, cricket, soccer, netball, athletics, tennis, all the other codes of sport that are very popular. And what we've done in the Western Cape is chess is on the club development program. Chess also gets on the sport focus schools, and chess is also part of the events as well. So you'll see that many of the tournaments I refer to is hosted in Cape Town because government makes money available both at the provincial level and at the local government level. So that funding with your PE, municipality, Nelson Mandela, and your Eastern Cape sport body is very, very important. So that is what we've done to start that discussion, and why Western Province will always be one of the, together with Gauteng, one of the top 2 provinces when it comes to chess, because we've invested in that. So you've got to look at the definition of the priority codes and how to take it further. So Lawrence, thanks for that question, and I can explore it later with you as well. So let's just check with Calvin if he's got one question in the box, and then we'll go to, so Calvin, you okay there?
Good morning, Dr. Bouah and all our guests. So warm greetings from the Calvin Klaassen channel. And yeah, I've got a question here in the chat box. It says from Babiki, what is the difference between the first reflections book and the second one?
So the first reflections book is a compilation of all of the reflections that I wrote in 2020 and part of 2019, where I looked at the individual tournaments that took place in Cape Town, the Western Cape, and South Africa. So I've put in games of players and commented on tournaments. So there are 26 chapters in the first book that people can read and look at and learn from. The second one is only my journey. The second reflections book, which is the red one, has got 95 games, and they are all of my own games. And I then chronicle my chess career from BETHELSDORP 1986 to 2002, where I stopped, and then I'm busy now writing the next edition. So that's the key difference, Calvin.
Fantastic, thanks, Dr. Bouah. One more question, maybe?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, this one is from King Ulster. King Ulster says, thanks for sharing these personal and professional insights. Are there plans to ensure a provincial copy as repository for the reflection series?
Thanks. We will be from Monday onwards. It will be available from today as well. And King Ulster, we're glad that you have joined. King Ulster is Mr. Earl King from Pretoria now. Thanks, Earl. And Earl, you are even mentioned in the book as well, because I discovered that you also played in the Unity match in 1991, and Earl's father is also mentioned in the book as one of the teachers that influenced me at Triumph Primary School, because Mr. Lonnie King used to say, learn to listen and listen to learn. So thank you very much, Earl, and we will certainly send a copy soon when we get back to Cape Town. Thanks, Calvin. Okay, Denise, you find great. Any last questions from the audience? Because I'd like to do something. I'd like to share something after this. A photograph. Bevan, you've got your hand up.
But from 30 years, probably about 30, you have to have a mental strength. If you have a mental coach, well, the strategy, those coaches that maybe wake up early enough, next morning to get school, and then you have a challenge with the key group is like to yourself, but one player to go back.
Kevin, thank you very much for the question. You know, when we were growing up, we didn't actually know those terms, eh? Mental health, resilience, mental strength, we didn't really know it. In fact, I still don't know if we had it or didn't have it. Fortunately, I've got a personal mental coach now, Tinus. She's right here, Dr. Denise Bouah. But I think at that time, you know, I looked at it in a different way. Mr. Ritchie often spoke to us. Ivan Peterson, Milroy Rogers, Yanni Safir, the senior players that were with us, we would talk about setbacks. And if you receive the setback, you must still get up and go play the next day. In those years, in the 80s, we used to play 3 chess games a day. You played the morning, 9 o'clock. You finish at about 11 o'clock, and in 12 o'clock you're back on, and then you play a third game because you can't travel up and down. So if you lost the morning, you only had 20 minutes to recover. But I think I must say, it took me probably more than 20 years, if not longer, to accept a loss. I hated losing. My sisters will tell you that I wrote 2 tennis rackets at the Morocco tennis courts opposite Fast Play swimming pool because I hated losing. Sorry, I squared them. Yes, I squared the tennis. So for me, I always trained hard because I wanted to be the best. In this book, I actually exposed myself when I will tell you that in 1988, on the 26th of September, I was playing the final of the South African Schools Championship, and I was the only one with 5 out of 5. The guy I was playing was Wilfred Nelson. He had 4.5 out of 5. Winston Dalpert had 4.5 out of 5. So they were on, but I was playing Nelson, and if I beat Nelson, I'm on 6 and I win the championship. Then Lawrence Puzzler, I decided to play for the crowd, and I sacrificed my queen unsoundly, and I lost. When I lost, I was down 5, and I wouldn't be the champion because, of course, Winston had won his game, so he was already at 5.5. And now Nelson wins, he's also on 5. I actually went to the toilets at CJB and I cried because I had lost, because I hadn't yet. Winston didn't beat Nelson in the playoff, and Winston wins, so that became a happy ending for us. But that strengthened my resolve, and then the next year, I was again in the playoff. This time, well, first time playoff against Conrad Blisnout, and I beat Conrad in the playoff 2-0. And then in 1990, we played at St. Thomas, and I won the championship 6.5 out of 7 with no issues. So I think our seniors assisted us to understand that you've got to learn to accept your losses because there will be losses. You're not going to win every game, but it's your ability to get up. And it took, as I said, it took me years to accept losing, but you've still got to prepare. And all of us go through difficulties. My first difficulty is 1987, in January, I make the EP senior team. And you'll see in the book, my first time I mentioned in the Evening Post was a little a notice that said, this is the EP team, Lyndon Bouah, B team, 13 years old. That's how it's written in. And then I didn't make the schools team. I made the senior team, but I didn't make the schools team in 87. And that was a very big disappointment for me. But I think we had to be resilient. We had to just continue to play because you're there. And I think that continued right through. Even 1993, we played the South African Closed Championship. And we played at Claremont. I had to travel by taxi every day to get there. I came second last in the event, 1993, second last. Now remember, I had a criticism in 92. Now I came second last year in 93, and I had a critic saying that I'm not good enough to be in the SA team, and already I was an Olympian. Now that spurred me on. So when 94 came, I pushed myself to get into that Protea team again, and I think I haven't done my complete calculations yet, but I think I'm on 67 caps for South Africa. So I'm happy with the fact that I made my caps for South Africa on merit. But Bevan, at that stage, we didn't know the meaning of mental toughness. We just had to be mental tough. You know, whether the bus broke down or you had to do a raffle, you had to do it because we loved our sport and we were passionate about sport. And whether it was my father playing tennis for progressives, or whether it was my sister then playing anyway, we all loved our sport, so that's what we did. But thank you very much for that question. I want to ask Meryl and Alison to come to the front because I'd like to present my first books to them. So Meryl and Alison, if you, as my sisters, can come to the front. Please come through, Meryl and Alison. So you'll see that in this book, I'm just going to read the dedication, and the dedication says, I dedicate this book to my parents, Ruby and Winston Bouah, my sisters, Meryl Cooper and Alison Adams, and my wife, Dr. Denise Bouah. My parents and sisters provided the foundation for my chess development, and my wife created the space and atmosphere to undertake this work. I thank them for this, and I dedicate the book to them. Thank you very much, Beryl and Alex. Okay, right? Okay, we'll just put it down here quickly. Okay, just quickly. Okay. I try to leave. Thanks. There are 51 focus in there, so I'm sure Beryl and Alison will see a few focus there. So, any last questions? We've come to the end of everything. I promised Calvin he's got another stream after this that they will come through, and I welcome. So, colleagues from my side, thank you very much for coming to today. We're going to be having, as I said, 12 o'clock is our next session, and we'll continue after this. And then for me, the exciting journey is, of course, the fact that I'm going to reconnect with many old players, because we're going to visit them all over. And I think when you have a look at the photos, it will bring back memories. Denise was responsible for taking those old photos, taking a photo of the photo, and then enhancing it with whatever new technology is in existence, because of course, at that time, as you'll remember, you could only take one shot really, and if it was a hit and a miss on that side. So from my side, everybody, thank you very much for coming today. And if you'd like to purchase a copy, we've got copies of the first and second book here. And then if anybody is interested, we also have copies of Denise's first book here as well, Sports Psychology for Children. Thank you very much, everybody. We are now adjourned.